Today on the Dig podcast, I am speaking to Mairead Mackle, and I honestly don't even know where to start when introducing this woman, but I'm going to do some kind of an attempt at introducing and telling you just exactly the amazing work that she does. So Mairead is a multi-award-winning entrepreneur. She owns and operates a wide range of businesses across several different industries, some of which include care, support, housing solutions, renewables and construction, and we're going to hear about those all in the podcast today. They're all under the one umbrella of Tarasis Enterprises, and we'll be putting the links to all of these in the show notes so you can go check them out. Under Tarasis Enterprises, there is so much that we have to talk about, and there's so much amazing work that Mairead does as part of the Tarasis Foundation as well. Mairead is continually being recognised for her innovation in business. The amount of awards that I was going to start calling out here, but there actually is so many that we're going to write all those in the show notes today. But some of which I'd like to mention are that she's currently the NatWest Everywoman of the Year and the Irish Tatler Entrepreneur of the Year. She is also named as a finalist in the Ernst and Young Entrepreneur of the Year. She, in 2018, received a National Special Recognition Award in London for her commitment to family business and impact on the local community. She has also received so many prestigious awards over the years, and as I said, I'll list them all in the show notes so you can have a little read there. There's so many, it's just hard to call them all out, which isn't a bad complaint, Mairead. Alongside her business interests, Mairead is a loving mother to 7 children. Like, how amazing is that? And despite all the demands of her business, she has made it her priority to give back to her community, and this is all done through her voluntary work and the charities and the mentoring that she's involved with. She's a strong supporter of equality, diversity and women in business, and yeah, I don't want to say any more. I want you to hear it from her.
This is an exciting new digital world we live in, and I want this podcast to help inspire you on your entrepreneurial journey. It's not easy juggling all the balls in the world of work, and I know that more than anyone. But I invite you to join thousands of our other listeners as we talk about all things money, marketing, hard times and successes. So get ready to be challenged and inspired. This is the Dig podcast.
Hello, Mairead. How are you?
Hello, Caroline. How are you? And delighted to be joining you today.
Oh my God, I am over the moon to have you. There's so much. I know that you're so much value you're going to bring. And Mairead, with the Dig podcast, everyone listens to be inspired and get fire in their belly and take actionable advice from the speakers. And I know all of that is going to come from you today because I've heard you speak so much. And I'm ready. You're ready. The listeners will be all buzzing here. So can you I did do a wee introduction, but you tell me now a wee bit and tell us a little bit about how your journey began and how all this has came to be.
Lovely, Caroline. So as I say, I'm delighted to be able to share whatever I have with you today, and hopefully it'll be of benefit to somebody. And I'm not saying I've got all the answers, but I suppose any little snippet sometimes helps, and it certainly helped me in the past when I heard people sharing their journeys. So I suppose to start with, my journey really began with, I grew up in a farm in Fermanagh. And I suppose the one thing I would say about that is what a farming community does for you really is it instills a great work ethic into you. And then what I did after that was I was shipped off to university because my mother and father were very much into education. So we were all shipped off to university. I studied podiatry, strangely. I suppose I would have worked 3 nights a week as a waitress during that time to pay my way through college. And it was a great time in Belfast. And then when I graduated, of course, I thought, well, I'm going to work as a podiatrist, and this is going to be me set for life. But then when I went to apply for the jobs, I got a few temporary jobs, but when I went for permanent jobs, I couldn't pass any of the interviews. So whether the interview skills are really bad or there was very few jobs available. But anyway, here I was sitting with, what'll I do? I don't have a job. So I decided the only thing I could do was start up my own business. But I never really thought in my life, it was never entered my mind that I would actually start a business. So, but I suppose the core thing at that time, I was fiercely independent, as a woman especially, and I wanted to be financially independent. I didn't want to be dependent on anybody. I wanted to make my own way in the world, and that was really important for me to do that. So then I started this business in podiatry in Armagh. But what I quickly realised, I had one son at that stage, my eldest son was born, and what I quickly realised within that environment was that it was really restrictive, a really restrictive model. You know, I couldn't get out if I was stuck in a clinic all day long, all week long, if there was anything to do with school or nursery or whatever. And then if I didn't go into work, there was no income. So the whole thing was dependent on me. And I wasn't comfortable with that. And I felt really trapped. And so what I really wanted then, and what was important to me then, more than having money in my pocket, really was the flexibility and freedom, you know, to get out and get away from that 9-to-5 scenario. And of course, way back then as well, I wouldn't have been able to afford to employ somebody to manage the practice for me. So I had to take a look and see what else can I do here. So I very fortunately came across home care at that stage. It was 1995. And it was a new service. It was to really, it sat really well with my values. It was something that I really felt passionate about. It was really to help people who needed care, give them an alternative from going into nursing care or nursing homes, and so that they'd have the independence to live within their own home. So I really loved it. And then when I got involved with that, I suppose I started it off at my kitchen table. I convinced this bank manager, local bank manager, to lend me £10,000 to get started, because that was all I really needed, and that was the key. And then I suppose I just got stuck into it. I really, I loved it from the start. I was bit by the entrepreneurial bug, which podiatry didn't do for me. It totally consumed me. Like, as a lot of entrepreneurs would say, when they start a business, they love, when they find something they're really passionate about, they're really consumed. And I didn't mind. There was long hours, you know, late nights. And at that stage, I had my second child, who's a little girl, and she was born just at the start of home care. And so, you know, we worked from home. We had the 2 kids, but it was really, really demanding and challenging. But I suppose we just got on with it and grew it. And then a couple of years later, then my husband and I joined forces and we set up home care housing. And then we just, over the years, then we've just invested in things, different things. I suppose there's been defining moments where we've seen things, you know, we've come across things that are important to us, and we've, you know, made a decision to invest in them. And then really then a lot of things have changed over the last couple of years. So I suppose took some time off. I started to work from home, and then I started to look at everything that we're involved in about 2 years ago, and thought, you know, once the whole initial chaos, of course, of the pandemic had passed, thought, like, where do we want to be as an organisation over the next, you know, 5 to 10 years? So we looked at everything, and we realised that everything we'd invested in over the last number of years had like a common thread of social impact. Now, that was just more by accident maybe than design. So like all of the things we're involved in, they're tackling like social issues like homelessness, like inequality, or like net zero carbon targets. So we decided to bring everything under one umbrella. We decided to call it Tarasis Enterprises, and that's got a wee romance to it, because we call it Tarasis Enterprises after Saint Tarasis. And Saint Tarasis is his feast day is the 25th of February, which was the day me and my husband met years ago. So that's where the name came from.
How romantic.
How romantic.
Very romantic.
It was just born. Tarasis was born then, and it's really, it was born with the mantra, creative, innovative solutions for the future of living. And we decided then to put it all together under like 4 divisions. And the 4 divisions then of Tarasis Enterprises are healthcare, housing, well-being, and then renewables. So in our healthcare division, like we employ about 1,200 people across the island of Ireland, across all of our divisions. We supply 1 million hours of care within our healthcare division across the island of Ireland as well. And we also provide services, I suppose, for people who suffer from mental health and addiction. So that's a really important service for us. Within our housing division, then, we provide 3,500 beds every single night for people who are in housing crisis. And then we also have Fabrico, which I mentioned to you before, which is like an eco-friendly modular space solution, really. And it was really developed just to tackle the housing crisis that we're facing, that everybody's aware of. And then we set up a wellbeing centre, really, to look at biometric testing and general wellbeing, those sort of things, and hand hygiene products like sanitizer and all that. And then our renewable division really is, over the last, I suppose, 10 years, we invested in a multi-million-pound renewable plant, really to create our own energy, because that was important to us. And we create our own green energy, our own green gas, and then we're going to use that for our own business. We're going to use it for other businesses, and we currently produce enough energy to power about 500 homes. So that's the 4 divisions. But I think what's more important than all of that is really the fact that our core purpose, it's underpinned by a foundation, the Tarasis Foundation, which we set up a couple of years ago as well. And that Tarasis Foundation has a core purpose of using our business for good, or using our business to create a better world. And that's what's really important to us. And the key things within our foundation is equality and kindness. And I suppose what makes it all work, really, the most important thing of all, is that it's the people who work within this organisation. And I suppose because this core purpose that we have is really about making a difference to people's lives. And, I believe that, I suppose, in Tarasis and everything we've done across Ireland, we have created something really special, because we do find that our people are really bought into our core purpose of making a difference. And then the final piece of that really was then last year, we decided to put together a vision statement. And we called our vision statement Create, Innovate, Regenerate, because that covered everything that we do. And I suppose that is all that we do, but it's also where we live as well and where we work, because we live in a little village, and it's got a rich industrial heritage, and that rich industrial heritage has really been the key driver for our vision. So that's a sort of a summary of the whole journey and where we are to date.
Great. Like, you can't, we can't just move on after that. Like, this was your kitchen table, you sitting with no money, getting money from the bank, a small loan, and you're telling me all of this. Now, a lot of years have passed since that kitchen table, I know, but this is incredible. Like, do you ever
We're working at the kitchen table today, and now we're back to...
I know, we're both here now, but I mean, do you ever think like how far I'm sure you do, how far you've come? Like, I'm sure there's been so many challenges along the way.
Of course, I mean, there's always been challenges along the way. Like every day is a challenge in some ways, I suppose, and it's not really a challenge. I think for women, it's really about finding a balance in your life. And I suppose looking back, it was quite tough at the start, because as I said, there were late nights, there were long nights. Way back then, you didn't really feel that that you could ask for help, or you felt that you had to do it all yourself. And then I had 2 young children, I suppose, when I started the business, and my husband was working in America, so it was certainly like difficult, to say the least. But now, I suppose, we've went on now, and we have 7 children now. And I suppose the funny thing is, when you tell somebody that you have 7 children, is that the first thing they think is that you've definitely changed the man somewhere along the line. But no, I held on to him, and he's a great business partner, he's a great partner, and we're a really good team. And I suppose we sort of bounce things off each other. And we were actually, we'd be laughing actually, because we're saying when the youngest ones are driving, we'll have been doing the school run for over 40 years.
Oh my
that's a bit of an
God.
But I suppose, like, when you look back, the early years, I suppose, were the difficult time, and you can't really forget about that. And the one thing I would say about when I look back at that is that I thought I needed to do everything myself. And I remember what I've said, there's defining moments throughout your life, I think, that make you change or make you, turn in a new direction. And one of the defining moments for me was, I remember we were working from home, and I had 2 porta cabins. At that time we had a smoking one and a non-smoking one. We were allowed to do those things away then. Yeah. But I remember this supplier called to visit, and I had called her in for a cup of tea and made a cup of tea. And I remember looking around the house in the kitchen, and I couldn't find one clear bit of surface to set the teacup down on. And I thought to myself, this is actually chaotic. The whole house is taken over by this business. And I remember thinking, something has to change, or I'm going to lose my mind here. And things did change. And the reason they changed is because on one of the trips that my husband Gerald was on, he took me back a book called The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. And that was the change. And that was the turning point for me in my business at that time, because I was doing all those long nights, but I wasn't trained in business. I didn't really know how to run a business. And when I got that book, I really consumed it, and I thought it was really interesting. And there wouldn't have been a lot of business books then, or a lot of education on business. But the key thing that book taught me is that it said that if a business isn't giving you more life, it's taking your life away. And if it doesn't give you more freedom, it's not a business at all. It's only a job. And that's what I realised then. All I had was a really difficult job, and I was still trapped in another way, just busier in something, yes, I really love. And what I really needed to do then, and what the book taught me how to do, was to learn how to run a business. And that was the key thing. And it also showed me exactly what I had to do. So I had to think differently. I had to create departments. I had to, I mean, it sounds simple now when you think about it, when you look back, but I didn't know any of that stuff. So I had to like create a marketing department, create an operations department, create a finance department. And the book taught me exactly how to do that.
So just to jump in.
The key thing it said as well is to work on your business and not in your business. And then to work strategically, because I was working operationally, and I think a lot of people do that. And then that's, that is sort of the approach that I've taken ever since. And that was the turning point for me, as, in all businesses that I'm operating, is like work, not in.
What is that book again? Can you tell me?
The E-Myth. The E-Myth.
Okay.
So
I'll link that in the show notes.
Yeah, I'll link that in. It's a great book for like somebody new and starting in business. And then I remember going on a course with Common Purpose as well a few years ago, and there was a guy sitting up at the front of the room doing a talk, and he said to me, it's the leader's job to share the vision. And that really, I thought that was a defining moment as well. I thought, that's so true. It's my job to share the vision. Let your good people get on with it, because they've got the skills, and don't try and control everything yourself. And it's quite difficult to do that, because you want to control everything, and you think nobody can do it. But actually, you take people into your team. They're really good. They're better at doing things than I am. So now I just let them get on, and I share the vision and let them make that vision a reality.
Oh my God, I love that. And I guess, like, I listen to other business owners so many times become, and myself in the past too, consumed by, as you said, the things that, all the logistical parts of the business, the things that probably aren't your strengths, but you can't find a way forward. So that book, I would say, is going to help so many people. I wish I had read it too.
Yeah.
My early days of business, that's such good advice. And then having such a big family and growing such a huge business, like family dynamic wise, what were the challenges?
Yeah, I mean, I never would have been able to, make a decision to have 7 children unless I knew that my business could run without me, because obviously the children need you a lot, as you know, with your own. And I suppose the one thing that I would say that I've learned is that I would treat my home as the most important department of all. And if it's not running right, nothing runs right. And, I suppose you'll find I have older children, I have adult children, I have like twins who are 6, and I have an 8-year-old as well, and kids at university, all different ages. And what I find is as they get older, they need you more. So you can leave them with babysitters and childminders when they're young, but you can't, they need you there, for that emotional support. And what I learned a couple of years ago, I was introduced to Lift Ireland with Joanne Hessian, who's a great lady. And she introduced me to John Maxwell, who's a values-based leader. And I met him in Dublin, and I was hugely influenced by his books, another book of influence. And he wrote a book called The 21 Laws of Irrefutable Leadership. So within one of those laws was the law of the inner circle. And the law of the inner circle really explains that you need a close and trusted team around you who will call you out, who'll challenge you, but who'll also support you and have your back all the time. And I suppose that's what it's essential for success, either in life or in business. And that's, I suppose, what I have done. I have a close and trusted team at work, brilliant, staff at work, brilliant people around me. And I've also a brilliant team at home. And not like, 25 years ago when I thought I had to do it all myself, my babysitter actually, one of my babysitters has been with me for 23 years. God help her. Yeah. But, and I suppose the kids love it as well, because the girls especially, they love me being in business, and they love this, what they talk about, this strong female role model mother. And they're like, telling their friends, if there's any of these situations where they're, being challenged about their gender, they're going, excuse me, my mother can do this, blah, blah, blah. And they see opportunity for themselves of growing up in this home where I suppose we're both in business, and they see that they can, they can do anything themselves. They can, one of my girls is, at university, and she's, determined to have her own business. My eldest boy has started his own business in Fleetwise. So there's different things. They see opportunity for themselves, and I suppose it has helped them along the way. And I remember the 2 little girls, they're 6 and 8, they were talking one night, and they were going, declaring very proudly, they were going, Mommy's a CEO. And Charlie, he's 6, one of the twins, and he was not happy about this at all because he thought, well, his daddy's been left out here. And he was going, well, daddy's the CEO of the yard. He got a title as well. So I don't know if he was too pleased with his title, but because we live on a farm, obviously, and he's now the CEO of the yard, so that's what we call him. Oh. So I know, there has been challenging times, but I think, I suppose one of the main challenging times that I would have had personally then is a set of twins of 6. And I was afraid, like for other reasons than other people, I was afraid to tell anybody I was pregnant with the twins at 6. I was afraid to tell the bigger ones that I was pregnant with these twins. I'm afraid to tell my mother because she said she was going to leave the country if I had any more. But anyway, I was pregnant with these twins, and I had just recruited a new general manager, and I thought, this is fine, still have 4 months. I hadn't told anybody because with the older, like it was maybe about 18, 20 weeks, with twins, it was like time to tell. And I thought, no, I'm not going to tell him until he says yes to the job. So then he said yes to the job, and he came in and then said, well, at least I have 4 months to train him up. Everything's fine. We'll be able to get him all trained up. And then we have Caroline, who is my CFO, and she was like my most trusted person in the team. Like, so I said, she'll be able to help him along for the, if I'm not there, blah, blah, blah. So then she came in the next week and she announced that she was pregnant with twins as well. That was a bit of we were going, what are we going to do now? But forever the optimist, I was going, no, it's okay. We'll be fine. We'll just make these 4 months really count. We'll have them all trained up, blah, blah, blah. And then the next thing I went into labour at 30 weeks. And
no way.
Twins really young. And of course it was a very scary time. As you can imagine, the twins were neonatal. I couldn't leave them. And it was really, it was a bit of a session looking back. Certainly wouldn't like to repeat it. But anyway, we got there, they got out of neonatal after 4 weeks. He managed very well. And thankfully the twins have done really well. Now they're in P3 and they're doing fabulously. They just laugh and play all day. So we just look back on it now and say, well, that was a bit of a siege. But what the big challenge was, I suppose, is when we got them out of hospital, they didn't actually sleep. For 4 years, they literally never, there wasn't one of them slept one night for 4 years. So you can imagine what that was like. I literally had to, it's all a blur where I was literally lying on the floor, holding their 2 hands with their cots. And, this went on just for years. And then all of a sudden overnight, then after 4 years, they start to sleep 12-hour nights. I don't know. So all's well, it ends well, and they're doing great. And I suppose we just got through it and just look back and have a bit of a laugh about it now.
Oh my God, Mairead, like that makes me feel really emotional. Maybe just because I'm a mummy too, listening to that. That is hard. Like, that is hard. It could make or break you, like an experience like that, couldn't it, really?
Resilience is certainly something that, people talk about resilience, and I don't really understand, how you get through things like that. Have never really, I suppose, investigated it. You just got through it, and I suppose you just had to do it. And but with your children, it does. Everything stresses you until you know that they're okay, so it has to have an impact, but you just, I suppose, have to do what you have to do. They needed to get what they needed, and that was it. I
think it's so interesting there, and I again resonate so much with you saying your home has to be the priority. And I what's the word? I feel ashamed to say in my time in the shop, there were times when my home wasn't a priority, and I felt so guilty about that, Mairead. And I guess everybody goes through that time when it isn't a priority and you have to reevaluate. And thank God I have, and I find a way through now where absolutely everything I do, I say, is it going to fit with my family first? And then I say yes or no. But I think there'll be loads of people listening going through this at the minute because they're at different stages of business. So hopefully this sheds some light on that. It will work out. You just have to reevaluate, put your goals in place and your priorities, and work through it, and it's going to be okay. Is that what you would say? It's going to be okay?
You just get through it. I think it's just part of who you are. And I'm sure you've heard that definition of an entrepreneur, just when you say that about guilt and all that sort of stuff. It's what is it? That you can spend a few years of your life like most people won't, so that you can spend the rest of your life like most people can't.
Oh, I love that so much. I'm going to write that down in my flipping book in front of me here. Oh my God. I know, but you know what? It's a journey as women, especially, not to, there's so many men as well, such, part of the home and all that. But I guess the traditional role is like the mother to be there and be it, pick up from school and nursery. And if they're sick, they ring you, even though you're in the middle of a massive meeting. So, we're all going through it. And it's lovely.
Exactly. And as they're older, it just gets, it's more important, I think, that you're there for them.
I could talk about that all day, about motherhood, and I know you cover this topic so much, and we'll touch a wee bit more on women and stuff in a minute, but just talk to me a wee bit more about home care. So you did say that home care employees, tell me again how many people?
Well, across all of Tarasis Enterprises, we employ 1,200 people, and I suppose a lot of them are, we've about 120 office-based, and then the rest are community-based through our housing services and care and support and whatever. So, like home care it's a big organisation and across 14 operational regions. And I think what drove our growth is like having a can-do attitude. And I think what stemmed that attitude was a couple of years before me and my husband got married, we went on a trip to the south of France. We hired a car. And on the back of the car, there was a little slogan. And my French is not very good, but it's "Oui, je peux." But we asked him what that meant, and he said, "Yes, I can." So we thought, well, that's a nice wee mantra now. So we'll take that mantra into our business. Yes, I can. And I suppose I think it was that, the answer is yes. Now, what is the question? Sort of attitude, I think, that ignited the growth from the start. And I think that within a company like home care, the services that you provide, because they're fundamental to people's well-being, I think that process excellence really has to be at the centre of everything as well. And that's really a key important thing. And in business, I always believe if you are to deliver predictable, scalable results, you need predictable and scalable processes. And like I compare it to, like, if you run a marathon, for instance, me or you could probably run out there and run 100 meters, no bother. But if you actually make that decision to run a marathon, which we are doing as an organisation and a business, and every business is, you really need predictable and scalable processes to make sure that you get your results. And that's just the comparison. The other thing I think was really key for us as an organisation is we've always used the mantra of one team, one dream, because I really think it's important that everybody shares that core purpose. And that's our mantra, one team, one dream, and that goes from the community to the leadership team. So culture, I think, culture eats strategy for breakfast. That's the saying that we always use. I'm sure you've heard of that one before. The other thing I think that I was thinking about this when you were asking me is structure is important. And, going back, I suppose, to the book of the starts, but you need the right people in the right roles within an organisation, because the leaders in an organisation are going to set the tone. And it's the tone, like I say, we're looking after people. So we have to set the tone of care and kindness and making sure that people are looked after. So like we hire for attitude and train for skills. I always look for, people with a good work ethic, people who really care for others. And then we can train them, whatever. We have a training academy within home care and we can train you in whatever you need to do, but you can't, the attitude's inbuilt. And what we did then is... back a couple of years ago as well, we identified a 16-person leadership team across the heads of departments and people who were in key roles, maybe in renewables or within like Fabrico or within HR or whatever. We picked out our 16 key leaders and identified them as the leadership team and then developed them. And then I think was key that it was actually setting them up as the future leaders of the organisation. So that was important as well. But we do have to review our processes. And as you know, in business, there's difficult decisions that need to be made. So what we do is we review everything every month. And if there's decisions that need to be made, we make it. But they're always made with the organisation, the good of the organisation, at its core. And then other things I suppose I was thinking about is that are important is leadership and loyalty. And we've got a lot of that within Tarasis. And I was trying to think about what it is that creates loyalty with people. And it's very hard to pinpoint it. But I think for us, first of all, I think to be having an organisation where people spend their energy and their time is such a real privilege. But I think, especially nowadays, it's really important that it's not just a livelihood anymore. It's also something that has to mean so much more to people, and I think that that's what home care and Tarasis and, the support services we provide in housing and everything gives people. It gives them a sense of doing something more than just going to work. And I think it's the power of knowing that we're out there at the coalface, we're helping people every single day, and we can make or break their day. We can, through kindness, we can, make somebody's day really good. And I think it's that shared purpose, and that's the glue that holds us all together. The other thing, I suppose, is we operate in a very challenging environment. We have to be operating 24/7, 365 days a year. We did not close our door one day throughout the whole pandemic. And if you can imagine, at the start of that pandemic, it was chaotic. Like, everybody was leading blindly. Nobody had the information, and we had to just carry on and do what we could to just keep everybody safe and provide services for vulnerable people until we could make sense of what we were dealing with. And then, like, overnight, everybody had to go to remote working. We had to go to virtual on call. And thankfully, we had invested a lot in paperless systems in the previous years. But the key thing for me, I suppose, is that our team just stepped up, got on with it, and they just blew us away. They were absolutely fabulous, the way they just got on with their job and looked after people. And they have so much loyalty to the vulnerable people that need them, and that really blew us away. And I put that down to the culture that we've built over the last 25, 26 years because of that core purpose. And then finally, I think it's key for an organisation is innovation, because again, back to the Michael Gerber book, if you're not growing, you're dying. And I think that's a very true statement in life and in business, because we're always moving, we're changing, be that in family values and, in your work ethic, and everything's moving all the time. We're moving parts. So if you're not growing, you're dying. And I think to create an innovative culture within an organisation, it's a mixture of mindset and also your management processes that will, we encourage our managers to think outside the box. Don't always do it the way it's always been done. Think of something different, try something different. And also, I suppose, to find a new solutions, and don't be afraid to find new solutions. So it's about taking calculated risks and not be afraid of failure. And I'm sure you've heard that saying about, a ship in harbour is safe, but that's not what ships are built for. So you need to actually feel the fear, do it, and create that culture, I suppose, where people are not afraid to take risks and back them up and all that. And 9 times out of 10, it'll work. But the other time, you just fail fast, move on, you learn from it and go, that's fine. And I think if I'm like that as a leader, the other people within the organisation, my team will say, well, she's, happy to try things and she's failed at that and she's just put a line under it and moved on. And that encourages them as well. And then when you find that it's not about massive innovation every single day of the week, it's about changing those tiny small things, and I think that hundreds of tiny small changes then will transform an organisation.
The Dig podcast is all about educating my listeners, but it's so important to me that it is also a place to gain exposure. Each week we open up the podcast to brands and business owners to pitch to you guys. I can't wait for you to hear from this week's business.
Branding for your business, school or club is a small investment with maximum return. We at the Gordon Group offer a range of services to ensure that you can deliver this. These services include embroidery and printed clothing, such as coats, hoodies, snoods and hats, especially needed for the winter. Contact us for a catalogue or e-catalogue to see the vast range we can supply. Other services include supplying of sports equipment, trophies and medals, which include in-house engraving, branded mugs and sports flags. We pride ourselves as a one-stop shop for clubs and schools, offering everything under one roof. We're a family-run business, established in 2006, based in Lurgan, County Armagh, who believes in providing top-quality customer service and value for money. To find out more about us, follow us on Facebook and Instagram at The Gordon Group, 3SA Embroidery and Mug NI Co. Or check out our website www.thegordongroup.co.uk.
Just to move on now to, oh my God, there's so much good stuff in what you're telling us here, but you've such a passion for helping female leaders. So tell us about that. Talk to us about that. There's so many men and women listen to the podcast, but I have to say a lot of women listen to it. So tell me where that passion came from and what does that involve?
Okay, well, I suppose it's something I've always been very passionate about and still am. And maybe got it from my mother, who's like a quiet wee feminist there. And also my father, he was a feminist as well, because he was always, supporting us, and like the expectations of the boys and the girls were always equal. So I grew up in that environment, I suppose. But I was always very passionate from a young girl about, equality. So I set up Evolve then, and Evolve is really about, it's not anti-men in any way, because I have 3 sons as well as 4 daughters. So I want the boys to do as well as the girls. Evolve is about creating an equal world. And I think that that's why we have male and female ambassadors. And all of the men actually that I know want to see equality, and they see the benefit of equality. So in 2018, I set up a community interest company called Evolve. And it's really to challenge the behaviours and cultures within society that are holding women back, because they're out there. People say, it's fine, it's, we're 2021, it's changed. It hasn't changed entirely. There's a lot of things that still need to move on. So like even the news yesterday, I was reading the Irish news, and there was an article in it to say that the funding for female-led businesses had dropped to 6%. So it's going backwards. So like there are a lot of inequalities out there that we need to constantly challenge. And I suppose what holds women back really is, like, it could be lack of confidence, lack of networks, lack of knowledge. And that's why I set up Evolve. Because as being a female entrepreneur myself, with fierce female women in my organisation, or most of our leadership team are women, needless to say. We'll have a few really good men in there as well. But and we work really well together. But we have some fierce female leaders within Tarasis, and like I suppose felt it was as a duty on me to use my resources to create this equal world. So Evolve is about empowering women to be women of power. So it's a couple of things. It's an educational platform, because we have different people that come in, male and female, who share their knowledge and help us to run businesses or ask for promotion or whatever, get money in our pocket. And it's also a platform where I like to challenge stereotypes and call out maybe like policies that are not right globally. Really, we just look at like all of the global things and call out and challenge stereotypes. I suppose the way I look at it is, Evolve is a very collaborative organisation, because it's looking at the problem. We're not precious about what we do. We look at the problem as a whole. So I'm involved and support lots of organisations across Ireland and beyond. As I said, I'm on the board of Women in Business. I've also spent a week with Vital Voices in Paris, and they're a global organisation that like invest in women all around the world to change like grassroots leaders. And then I'm also have been involved in the Going for Growth in Ireland, the 30% Club. So we really support any of those organisations. Glow and I in Belfast, brilliant organisation as well. We support all of them with Evolve. So we're just sort of in there, just challenging where we see things aren't right, and offering and sharing what we can. But I suppose the key thing about how I feel about women is that like the research is all there. Like we are good for business, so. The pandemic has really shone a light on that as well, as because we've seen these fabulous female leaders all around the world doing really well during the pandemic. But I think women need to see themselves as leaders. They need to see themselves. We're team builders. We're calm in a crisis. We're brilliant at managing and multitasking, even though that's supposed to not be a thing. We're grounded in life and reality, because that's what our life is. And like I think as well, like 20 years ago, if there was a time when if you'd have asked a woman, like, do you lead the same as a man? They'd say, yes, I do. I lead the same. But now they say, no, I don't. I lead like a woman. I lead uniquely, because it's the qualities of female leaders, I think, that are really important and coming to the fore right now, like empathy, listening skills, all those things are now being recognised, and they're all the skills of female leaders. So we lead uniquely. We lead with compassion, and I think we need to own it and be proud of it. So that's what Evolve's all about.
This is when the fire's starting in everybody's belly. They're like, I want to be part of Evolve. Oh my goodness. Like, I listened to your TEDx talk, which I will link in the show notes, and I know you've talked about it a lot, but it's very powerful, and it really talks about how it all started, that kind of fire with you anyway, Mairead, and I want everybody to listen to it because it's going to add on to this podcast and give you even more fuel on the fire. But oh my God, that's amazing. Now, I know you do so much for women and business and stuff, but also for the community through your eye care charity. And I don't want to move on from the podcast without talking about that, Mairead. So tell me what that is about.
Okay, well, eye care was born really from another defining moment in my life when I went to India about 10 years ago with EOI, the Entrepreneur of the Year. And it was there on that trip that I was introduced to corporate social responsibility. Because to me, I thought, well, business making money, blah, blah, blah. And there's nothing wrong with making money. But what I learned on that trip is that you can actually do so much more with your business and create so much more. And then I fell in love with the idea of using business for good. And it really resonated with me. Didn't even know it was a thing. And it's so much more enlightening to be in a business that's actually impacting your community. So we came home from that trip and we set up Eye Care Charity. It's a registered charity, and it's all about kindness without limits. So across our 14 operational regions, we have fundraisers, and we're very proud of the fact that nobody gets paid out of eye care. 100% of the funds raised goes directly into the hands of the people who need it. And what we do is we provide services for a lot of people, as I said, who are homeless, who have financial difficulties. So we see people every day coming into our services that maybe haven't got a stick of furniture. There's certainly no luxuries in their life, and maybe trying to hold families together and all that sort of stuff. So we do, it's a program called Eye Care at Christmas. And last year we went out and we got 1,500 gifts. And we made sure that all of these people that we know within our own organisation, within other organisations, we got all of our local businesses involved. And we made sure that they all had a physical gift. And not just, it's great that children get gifts at Christmas, but there's also homeless women trying to hold a family together, homeless men trying to get jobs and stuff. So we get gifts for everybody, the whole family, male and female. And this year our target now is to get 2021 gifts for 2021, obviously, and make it bigger and better and get out there. And we can sit and enjoy our Christmas dinner knowing that we have contributed to so many people. And our whole team gets involved in that. We're delivering gifts for weeks and weeks before Christmas. So it's very, very, very enjoyable thing to be part of, and very satisfying for everybody that we're making a difference to somebody, on Christmas morning. So that's eye care.
Unbelievable, and so much needed, and people like you driving something like that it's just, there are no words. It's all on the Tarasis, that's how you say it, Enterprises website, all about the eye care and all the links if anyone wants to find out more about the charity work.
We'll be delighted with anybody, who wants to, even just buy one gift and drop it into any of our sites and everything, it'll be delivered.
Absolutely. People are so good, and all you have to do is ask sometimes. So that is Mairead definitely asking for support for that. Mairead, just to kind of try and bring it all together and go back to women especially, but what advice do you give to women, like when you sit on all the different support networks that you're involved in? What is the key advice that you give to people?
Well, I suppose, there's a couple of things, I suppose, that I would see as important, both in business and in life. And I suppose the first thing that I would say for people is to never lose sight of why you started in the first place, or your, I suppose, never lose sight of your purpose, because inevitably everybody, hits challenges along the way. You hit, difficult times, and that's going to happen. But I think that if you can always remember, your why, and then always, try and keep your priorities in focus and stay true to yourself and stay true to that. I think that's a really important thing. The other thing I would say is that, going back to, I suppose, my own experience, is that people in business need to learn how to run a business. And, when I've done the research, I've seen that a lot of businesses fail. There's a really high percentage of businesses fail in the first 3 years. And most businesses fail, from what I have seen, is because they start a business with a skill, if that's podiatry like me, or dentistry, or hairdressing, or makeup, whatever it is that you're doing. But you actually you start with your skills. So you're actually a technician suffering from an entrepreneurial seizure. You're not running a business. So what you need to do is actually learn how to run a business and work on your business, not in it. Or somebody once told me, if you own a restaurant, get your hands out of the coleslaw. And that sort of summed it up for me. And then finally, the final piece of advice I would say to people is that, while the reality of running a business takes a lot of work and commitment, there's none of us going to be lying on our deathbed wishing we'd spent more time in the office. Definitely not me, So you need to make sure that you look back on your life as an adventure. You need to, take those chances, not be afraid of failure, take the risks, because, business is there to work for you. So you need to just take charge of it and own it. So that's my 3 tips.
Oh my goodness. And I'm saying women, but my goodness, let's just say men. That's for men. That's for everyone that's in business and meeting challenges. That advice is key. And I just spoke actually to someone that Jackie Reid from Deli Lights, Jackie, and she said exactly the same as you. I just spoke to her last week. She said she was told you need to get out of the kitchen, because she literally was in the kitchen in her business.
Yeah.
So she couldn't get the growth strategy happening because she was in the kitchen. So it's so good to hear you reinforce that advice. I know yours was only like an analogy, but I mean, she was actually in the kitchen.
Yeah.
So
and somebody had said to me one time, don't be so busy making a living that you forget to make a life.
Oh my God, Mairead, I feel like this is so emotional, because I suppose because I've been through such a journey, and I was flipping making a business and not living my life. And, I get that. God, it happens without you realizing. It just happens where you become so consumed by your business that your life just slips you by. But I guess knowledge like this and hearing people like you speak can make people reevaluate things. And that's why I love doing the podcast, because someone today will change what they're doing because of what you've said, Mairead, probably more than one person. So thank you so much for that. And I have written down here, what advice would you give to women in business right now who are facing challenges or perhaps aren't sure how to move forward with their business? But is there anything else to add, or that was kind of what you said there, those 3 tips?
Well, just really, the books that I've read and the around structure, culture, all of those things. It's really, and I suppose resilience as well, that no matter how difficult it is, you will get through it. And don't be afraid to take those risks, because I suppose as women especially, maybe sometimes we're afraid to maybe take that leap. And it's not always easy. But I suppose you need to, get the people around you that will support you and just, take a chance.
Oh my God, absolutely. Mairead, I could talk to you all day, but I actually would be afraid I might start crying. It's so emotional listening to some of the things that you're saying. So I want to thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge on the Dig podcast. And, it is don't underestimate that everything you said here is actually going to make a difference to people that listen to the podcast, because I know their fears and their challenges because I listen to them on social. But where can people continue to follow your story and find out more about you? How do they connect? Like website, social handles, tell us.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it's all about, really, Caroline. I mean, I get messages from people maybe a year later from something I've said, and, this really helped them through a difficult time. And that's so rewarding and so important, that you can help people. For me, well, I mean, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram, just Mairead Mackle, and don't know how to work Facebook, but the ones in the office do. I'm on Twitter. And then your website where they can find out more about the actual. It's Tarasis.com, yeah. And so on all of the social media platforms. And just send me a message if there's anything you want to ask me. Probably Instagram's probably the easiest one to follow up on. So send me a message if there's any questions or queries. I'll be more than happy, to help you in any way I can. Yeah. I can vouch for that, Mairead. It's been so good when I reached out to the podcast, and then we spent some time talking, so I got to know her more before we did this podcast today. So I can vouch she's so willing to give her advice and share her knowledge, which is unreal. And I'm not surprised she's involved in all the things she's in. Thank you so much, Mairead. I hope we get to meet face to face, and this virtual carry on can come to some kind of that we don't always have to do it virtually, that we can meet face to face very soon. I hope that opportunity arises. We have to have a dig for success party, Caroline, and we'll all turn up.
Absolutely, a big convention with all of us men and women there celebrating survival in business for sure. So thank you so much, and I hope to see you soon.
Yes, thanks, Caroline. Take care. Have a lovely day.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another week of the Dig podcast. If you missed anything, we've made some show notes for you with all the links and all the good stuff we've talked about today. Remember, if you do listen to an episode, screenshot it and share it on social. Remember to tag me so that I see it and I can reshare on my platform. I love to see everyone tuning in each week. It has been an honour to be your host. I look forward to our next episode.